Okay, so I welcome you once again, and it's great to have you on this week. That is the Reading Mahotsav week. And I would request Rashi. Rashi, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you can proceed.
Books are mirrors of imagination. You see in them what you already have inside you. Good afternoon and Jai Hind, everyone. I am Rashi Baranwal, student of BA first year, and I welcome our esteemed guest speaker, administration, and all the students on the fourth day of Reading Mahotsav week. Today, amidst us, we have Mr. Trishit Bannerjee as our guest speaker. Sir is an ardent reader right from his kindergarten days, and probably this led him to having an opinion of his from an early age. Sir wrote his first poem at the age of 6 and a half. In May 11, Sir founded his own monthly e-magazine, Young Chronicle. As a founder and editor of Young Chronicle, Sir ventured into interviewing people from all walks of life. Sir was also selected as one of the 15 global student ambassadors by University of Tokyo. We welcome you, sir. Now, without further delay, sir, I request you to begin with your session.
Okay, before Trishit, you start, we welcome you on behalf of Sunbeam Women's College, Varuna. And it's again great to have you. And we all are dyingly waiting to listen from you. Okay? So, okay.
Nilanjana ma'am,
Yes, ma'am. Shalini ma'am, are you there? Shalini ma'am, you are not audible. Okay, Trishit, we can proceed. Ma'am will again
All,
rejoin us once she is audible.
sure. No problem. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this opportunity. And it's so good to be back at Sunbeam College. So, Nilanjana ma'am told me it's a reading mahotsav, and she asked me that I should select a book. And it's difficult, because there are just so many good books all around us to select one book and what I can actually read. So I thought about it a lot and actually became delayed in answering her. But I finally actually chose a book, which is something which I picked up in Calcutta. It's called this book called India Descents, and it's by Ashok Vajpayee, it's not a book which he wrote, but he edited it. So it's like a collection of many poems, stories, and speeches from literally from the Rig Veda times to the modern times in 2016 and 17. And this entire collection is about how there is disagreement and debate in our culture, in the history of India. So I thought that it would be a great opportunity for me to actually introduce this book to you, read some verses, and actually show that how our culture and our history has been shaped by debate. So I will be actually I'll introduce everything, and so that it's easy for you to understand also. And at any time you have a question or you have a doubt or something, just ask me, or if you want me to read something again, it's absolutely okay. So actually, I'm not sure if you have heard the book by Amartya Sen called The Argumentative Indian, and that book starts with this an anecdote where the Krishna Menon, who was one of our earliest foreign ministers, famously gave a 9 hour speech in the United Nations, and that's why like Indians really love to speak. So Amartya Sen in that book actually mentioned something from the Rig Veda called the Nasadiya Sukta, which is also mentioned in this book. And in the Rig Veda, one of the most important verses actually asks, who really knows? Who will here proclaim it? Whence was it produced? When is this creation? The gods came afterward with the creation of the universe. Who knows when it has risen? So, in one of the earliest books of our Indian philosophy or Indian culture, we have this questioning about God, questioning in our nature of a civilization. So, following that, I have chosen four writers from different parts of India's time. and I will introduce their works one by one in either short poems or writings or things like that. So the first writer I really want to introduce is, you may have heard, it's Lalder, the Kashmiri woman writer. So she was known as Laleshwari, and she was a Kashmiri mystic. She went to a saint, a Shiva saint. They followed Shiva and all. And she was married at the age of 12, but she actually left her family by the age of 26. And then started writing poetry, and her poetry became one of the first verses in the Kashmiri language. That's one of the first writings we have in Kashmiri. So in this book, actually, Lalder's poem have been translated into English by this famous writer, poet called Ranjit Hoskote. So her poetry is about questioning, about doubt, uh, whether what is the meaning of nature, what is the meaning of life. So I will read four small verses she wrote, which is mentioned in this book. Don't torture this body with thirst and hunger. Give it a hand when it stumbles and falls. To hell with all your vows and prayers. Just help others through life. There is no truer worship. Up, woman, go make your offering. Take wine, meat, and a cake fit for the gods. If you know the password to the supreme palace, you can reach the wisdom even by breaking all the rules. Some who have closed their eyes are wide awake. Some who look at the world are fast asleep. Some who bathe in sacred pools remain dirty. Some are at home in the world but keep their hands clean. Master, leave these palm leaves and birch barks to parrots who recite the name of God in cage. Good luck, I say, to those who think they have read the scriptures. The greatest scripture is the one that's playing in my head. So these were like four small verses which Lalder had written, and you can see how radical this was, like 14th century, to actually write this kind of poetry. The next writer I actually chose is Sadat Hassan Manto, which is of course one of the more famous writers. He Before the partition of India, he worked in Bollywood, and he was writing lyrics with his friend, the famous actor Shyam, and he was having Ismat Chuptai and all. They were his famous friends. But after partition, he had to leave India. He went and settled in Pakistan, and he was not very popular in Pakistan because his writings were very radical. For example, he wrote about how he saw rape happening during the partition. So that was not acceptable in the culture, in the society that time. So Sadat Hasan Manto wrote a piece in Hindi and Urdu. He said, Hindustan ko leadero se bachao. So this is a translation version I will be read. It's a small writing he wrote. Save India from its leaders. We have been hearing this for some time now. Save India from this, save it from that. The fact is that India needs to be safe from the people who say it should be saved. There are experts in making up this sort of thing, there's no doubt. The last thing they are, however, is sincere. After an evening of fiery speeches and righteous denunciation, when they return to their luxurious bedrooms, their brains are empty of all thoughts of saving us. They waste not a second on what actually ails India. Their concerns are personal, not national. And so occupied are they with this that there's actually no space for us. These people who can't even run their homes efficiently and whose character is lowly want to straighten out the country and lecture us on what is right. It would be
Yes, sorry,
funny.
Trishit. Sorry, you can
No
continue.
problem. It would be funny if it weren't so ridiculous. These people, leaders, see religion and politics as some lame, crippled man. They peddle him around to beg for money. They shoulder his corpse and appeal to those who will believe anything said from high on up. They claim they are bringing the corpse back to life with their effort. But the fact is that religion is what it used to be and will forever remain that. The principle of religion is intact, solid. It is inalterable, the sort of mountain that waves can never erode. When these leaders shed tears and wail, Mazhab khatre mein hai, it is all rubbish. Faith isn't the sort of thing that can come into danger in the first place. If anything is in danger, it's these leaders who want to be saved by claiming religion is in peril. Save India from its leaders who are poisoning our atmosphere. You may not know this, but these leaders go around with scissors. With these scissors, they snip your pocket and take all your money. Their life is long run towards wealth. Every time they exhale, you can smell the odor of insincerity and greed. At the head of enormous processions, weighed down by fat garlands, delivering unending speeches full of empty words, they make a path to power for themselves, a path to luxury. They raise and make huge sums of money for themselves, as you have seen. But have they told you how unemployment will end? They scream religion all the time. But when did they follow the teachings of their faith? These fellows who live in houses given to them, who live on the money they raise from others, how can they make us self sufficient? India doesn't need many leaders, each singing a different tune from the other, but those who sing together using the same words. We need only one, someone who will ride in the runaway horse of the state, who will lead us manfully towards independence. Remember, the greedy will never be able to lead us in the right way. Those dressed in silk have nothing to offer those who sleep on stones. Fling such people aside. They are bedbugs who creep inside the crevices and emerge only to suck our blood. They should be forced out with the heat of a despise. They rant against the rich for no reason other than that they want to be rich themselves. They are the worst sort of people imaginable. They are the thieves among thieves. Let them know what you think of them. What's needed is for a young man who may be clothed in tatters but are strong and broad chested to stand up and toss them aside from the pedestals they have occupied without our permission. They have no right to claim empathy with us, the poor. And remember, there is no shame in poverty. Those who think there is are themselves shameful. The man who fends for himself is the superior of the man who lives off the work of others. Be the man who fends for himself. Look coldly at what is in your best interest. Once we take our fate into our own hands, these leaders will have nowhere to run. So this was Sadat Hassan Manto writing this in somewhere in 1930s and 1940s India. And reading this is, even with modern politics, we feel that wait, lot of things sound similar, a lot of things sound we can learn even in today's time. The next writer I would like to introduce is Sant Raam Udasi. Not many people have actually heard this. He was a Punjabi poet, and he was involved in actually the Naxali movement in the 1960s. So at that time, he was not popular, but after his death, he became this respected figure in Punjabi literature, and people respect him because he wrote for the masses, for the poor, the oppressed. So he wrote. He died in 1986, but he wrote only three collections of poetry. And this is a translation by Nirupama Dutt. It's a poem called A Plea to My Mother. Do not give birth to me in a village where our dreams are forever shackled, where the hot beads of my brother's sweat have no value, where no tears accompany a couple as they ritually circle to take vows, where the groom's tinsel and flower headgear gives off no sparks, where dowry follows girls like a deadly infection, a village where, instead of being adorned in gold, the ears hear only the wails of the wretched, the sick, and the hungry. Do not give birth to me in a village where dreams are forever shackled, where our rights are buried under boulders, where intellect has long rusted beyond recognition. On the blood-stained wrist seems to have cracked the forlorn glass bangle which met such an end. No one caresses the blossoms on the cotton plants that seem to be weeping even at full bloom. Do not give birth to me in a village where dreams are forever shackled. In the fat moneylender's ledger, tied with a red ribbon, the fire of what is rightfully ours lies long imprisoned, where, kicked by heavy nailed boots in the street, our father's turban lies tattered and torn. Our livelihood is cursed, says the sigh of a poor woman. Someone else is wrongfully taking our share of the moon. Do not give birth to me in a village where dreams are forever shackled. This was Sant Udasi writing in the 1960s and 1970s about the problems in the villages in India and how social and economic challenges still keep villages long behind from progress. And finally, I selected this writer, Mahasweta Devi, which I don't know if you have heard of. She's one of the most famous, probably modern Bengali poets. She was born in Dhaka, and she comes from a very famous family actually. Because if somebody who is familiar with a bit of Bengali literature or Satyajit Ray and the Bengali film, so she comes from the same family as Ritvik Ghatak, and one of her uncles founded the Economic and Political Weekly India, which is one of the very popular journals in the country. She won the Sahitya Akademi Award, the Ramon Magsaysay Award, and she worked a lot for the tribals and the marginalized sections. So much that recently in Jharkhand, the Birsa Munda statue actually had chains in its hand. Because of her work, it was removed. And in 2006, at the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is one of the world's biggest book fair, India actually became the first country to be invited for the second time as a guest nation. So it is at that Frankfurt Book Fair she made a speech. And one of the most famous lines she said was from the song Mera Juta Hai Japani. And she said, "This is truly the age where the juta is Japani, the patlu is Englishtani, the topi is Rusi, but the dil is always Hindustani. My country, torn, tattered, proud, beautiful, hot, humid, cold, sandy, shining India, my country." From the same speech, actually, this was written in this, published in this book. The speech title was called The Republic of Dreams. So I will be reading some, not all, but a few paragraphs from this speech to end this session. The Republic of Dreams. Nothing happens unless you know how to dream. The establishment is out to destroy by remote control all the brain cells that induce dreams. But some dreams manage to escape. I am after the dreams that have escaped from jail. The right to dream is what allows mankind to survive. If you end the right to dream, which the entire world and everyone is doing, you destroy the world. The right to dream should be the first fundamental right. Since the 1980s, I have been vocal about the daily injustice and exploitation faced by the most marginalized and dispossessed of our people, tribals, the landless rural poor who then turn into itinerant labor of pavement dwellers in the cities. Through reports in newspapers, through petitions, court cases, letters to the authorities, participation in activist organizations and advocacy, through the grassroots journal I edit, Portica, in which the dispossessed tell their own truths, and finally through my fiction, I have sought to bring the harsh reality of this ignored segment of India's population to the notice of the nation. I have sought to include their forgotten and invisible history in the official history of the nation. I have said over and over, our independence was false. There has been no independence for these dispossessed people, still deprived of their basic rights. Let the people trace their hands over every alphabet until they can write for themselves. I know, I can, I will. Indian culture is a tapestry of many weaves, many threads. The weaving is endless, as are the shades of the pattern. Somewhere dark, somewhere light. Somewhere saffron, somewhere as green as the fields of a new paddy. Somewhere flecked with blood, somewhere washed cool by the waters of a Himalayan spring. Somewhere the red of a watermelon slice, somewhere the blue of an autumn sky in Bengal, somewhere the purple of a musk deer's eye, somewhere the red of a new bride's sindoor. Somewhere the threads form words in Urdu, somewhere in Bengali, somewhere in Kannada, somewhere in Assamese, yet elsewhere in Marathi. Somewhere the cloth frays, somewhere the thread steer, but still it holds. Still it holds. I claim to have always written about the culture of the downtrodden. How tall or short, or true or false is this claim? The more I think and write and think some more, the harder it gets to arrive at a definition. I hesitate, I falter. I cling to the belief that for any culture as old and ancient as ours to have survived over time and in time, there could only be one basic, common, and acceptable core thought: humaneness, humanity, to accept each other's right to be human with dignity. This then is my fight, my dream in my life and in my literature. So yes, that was Mahashweta Devi, and that's was something very. I really like that part where she writes about the beautiful diversity of India, and those were the four selections. As you see, I mentioned from 14th century, then to partition India, then 1960s, and then modern 1980s Indian literature. So I hope it was interesting for you. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask me. Thank you so much.
Your session can never be boring. Trishit, that's one thing sure. And thank you for such a wonderful session. Yes, we have questions. And now I would request Iksha if she has a question. Could she raise her hand?
Jain sir.
Jai
Sir,
Hind.
from the verses you selected, which one was your favorite and why it was your favorite?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. But actually, it was the Mahashweta Devi's last the speech. I liked it a lot because um, it kind of, I felt it told the entire history and the culture of a country, that we are so different and yet we are so united. So the and in the way she described the cloth, the color, and the seasons as India, so I thought that was a very beautiful way she described, and I think that was my favorite part from today's sessions.
Okay, thank you, Trishit. Next, Manya, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, Jain sir.
Jai Hind.
Sir, if you would be born in the era where we are fighting for the freedom, which area would you select to write?
Wow. So if you're fighting for freedom, maybe, Maybe 1940s India I would probably select, because I think uh, especially in a school history textbooks, because usually we finish with India became independent and that's where we finish. But I think 1940s India is a very interesting time. So many things changed, and a lot of our success and failure as society happened in foundation was that. So maybe I want to write, look at the people, and write in that period.
Okay, thank you. So next question we have from Muskan Siddiqui. Muskan, kindly unmute yourself.
Jain, sir.
Jai Hind.
Sir, I had a question that is reading a part of your daily routine or it's just your weekend booster?
Mm. Yeah, so no, I do read a little bit, especially before going to sleep, 1 hour or 30 minutes or 1 hour or so. So I read a little bit, whatever I can, and then I go to sleep. But then I mean, it may not be always a book or a novel, because now these days there are so many online magazines and everything is so much online. So you can read essays online and stuff. So I do keep on reading something or the else every day.
Okay.
Wow, that's great.
Okay. So anyone else has any question? You can raise your hand. Okay, Trishit, I guess that's the end of the queries. I have a question for you. I just want to ask you that from your busy schedule, how do you get time exactly to, I mean, so go on reading and reading, because you inspire a lot to read.
Yeah, so it's because I mean, it has become kind of a habit, because I've always been reading for a long time. So I kind of feel guilty if I don't read for some long period of time. But once you're in college and university, you have to read so much academic stuff, and so my entire day I'm reading only about science. So I really need some time to unwind, to do something else. So I think as long as you're reading something, it's good enough. So yeah, I still try to find some time every day to read.
That's great to know. Okay, so Pratima Yadav has one question, and I'll be taking this as the last question. Okay, yes, Pratima.
So, good evening, sir, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Sir, I have a question that how this reading, this reading, how it has changed your life. Like, if you can share experience.
Hmm. Yeah, that.
Because, sir, nowadays many of us don't find reading very interesting. We often listen books, audiobooks, instead of reading it. So, if any experience you have.
Sure, that's a very good question. Like even with audiobooks and even ebooks, I have had a little difficult time to get adjusted. So my bags become very heavy. But I do feel, the good thing about reading, because especially in India, when we grow up, most of us don't really travel a lot or at all, maybe or outside the country or something. So reading is one way for us to travel, to learn about other people, other cultures where we may not go. So I think it helps us making very aware of different views, different perspectives. So especially in this international and globalized world, even when you meet a stranger, you will never feel that you know nothing about that person, because you may have read something somewhere. That's what reading really helps. So that's what helped me. So when I came to Japan, I didn't know the language or anything, but I was aware of some parts of it, that okay, I read this, I know this part of culture or something. So I think it really helps in widening your perspective. So when you make a decision maybe or something, you will be more tolerable to different kinds of views and opinions. And I think audiobook is also, I think, good enough, because if you're listening to it, at least you're listening to the content. And I know while walking it's easy to hear, and you can it's okay. So if that's what you prefer, it's great. But I still like to hold a book, smell the book, and read. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Trishit, for your wonderful time. Rashi, could you extend the vote of thanks?
Thank you so much, sir. It was such an informative session, and your session really inspired us to broaden our horizons of thought and imagination.
Okay, thank you,
Reading,
Rashi. Continue, please.
So thank you so much, sir, for your august presence amongst us as speaker in Reading Mahotsav Week. Reading
Thank,
is to make mind what exercise is to body. With this, we have come to the end of the fourth day of Reading Mahotsav Week. Keep reading until we meet again. Thank you and Jai Hind.
thank you, Rashi. And Trishit, on behalf of Sunbeam Women's College Varuna, we extend our thanks to you. Thank you for your presence. And I would really say that the Reading Mahotsav week without you would have always been incomplete. So thank you. Thank you for giving me your time, for giving us your time. Okay. And we would love to have you again reading some verses from one of your favorite book again. Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great next year ahead. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Jen,